UNLV football and basketball could get starters that used all their eligibility up back on the team for this season because eligibility rules in college football and basketball are changed seemingly every day. What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. We're also going to get into Jackson Arnold. He's going to be the starting quarterback, right? So the NCAA has new eligibility rules, and their whole goal was to simplify eligibility waivers, problems, whatever. But the new rule is just simply 5 years to play 5. Once you graduate high school, you have 5 years of eligibility, and you can play all 5. It's not a case where you only have 4 years of eligibility. It's just, hey, there's this 5-year window, and you can play every single season. Right? That's it. That's what they're going for. Transfer rules and stuff like that might be figured out by the bill that's in the Senate or the House and nobody ever votes on it, whatever. That's getting annoying too. But the new NCAA rule is 5 years, 5 seasons. The problem is it's not retroactive to anybody who used up all of their eligibility this past athletic calendar year. So you have players that played 4 seasons in 4 years, and this last year was their last year, and they're saying, hey, wait a minute, your new eligibility means I should have 1 more year, 5 to play 5. I played 4 and 4, so I should have 1 more year. A judge in Denver granted an injunction because every story in the college sports offseason involves a judge in some state granting an injunction. It's just what happens. But it happened in Denver, and basically says players who fit in that category of having played the last 4 seasons are eligible to have a 5th year. So you have to have been a class of 2022 high schooler. That's when you graduated high school. And then you had to have played the last 4 years and used up your eligibility to be qualified under this injunction. UNLV has a couple of these players across football and basketball. First in basketball, it's Kamani Hamilton. Right? He was in the class of 2022 as a high schooler. Then he played 4 years. So 1 at Mississippi State, 2 at High Point, and then last year at UNLV. So he fits the requirements perfectly. He's the exact type of athlete that this injunction is for. So Kamani Hamilton should have some eligibility. So he might be playing basketball for UNLV this upcoming season. I'll be honest, I don't have any extra info on that, right? I don't actually know if he's around, if he wants to, if UNLV wants him, all of that. I know UNLV's got open roster spots, but I couldn't tell you if that's like actually going to happen. I can tell you that based on that injunction, he is eligible. It's also college sports, so there's a chance that like tomorrow he's not eligible. We'll see. But UNLV could have Kamani Hamilton back. And if he does come back, that helps out a lot, right? There's a lot of frustration with the fouling of Kamani Hamilton, justifiably so. But he's a good player. He's absolutely a good Mountain West level player. And it's not hard to envision Kamani Hamilton as a starter on a team that wins the Mountain West and goes to the NCAA tournament. Right? Like he is good enough to be that level of player and fit into this front court for UNLV. So I think it'd be great for UNLV basketball if they get Kamani Hamilton back. I think it increases their chances of going to the NCAA tournament, increases their chances of winning the Mountain West and being the best team in the conference, right? Like that he makes them better if he's back and on the team. Now, in football, there's 2 players, Donovan Spellman and LaTerrence Welch. Welch was a starter last year. Spellman was a rotational piece. So football could also benefit from this as well, getting 2 players back. However, they're not on the roster right now. Football season obviously starts way sooner than basketball season, so figuring that out is going to be something Dan Mullen has to do, roster spot-wise and everything. It could be problematic if you don't have the roster spots and if there's supposed to be NIL money. I don't know. If you didn't have eligibility before, there wasn't NIL money saved for you. Do you want to come back and play for no NIL money? I feel like the school might have some leverage there to say, yeah, go somewhere else, whatever. So you have to figure that out with NIL and roster spot and all of that. Also, I still think this is true. Maybe it's not. I think you have to be enrolled in classes I think so. You have to be enrolled in classes to play college sports. Maybe that's not true anymore. Maybe I missed that one, but I do think you still have to go to a class or be enrolled in a class to play college sports. So that is another factor for that probably matters for basketball too, since the actual semester is going to start soon, regardless of when the season actually begins. But UNLV basketball and football could benefit from this. Football getting back a starter on defense and a rotational piece, and basketball getting back a guy who started last year and presumably would start again for UNLV this upcoming season. I do have one broad question, not necessarily just for UNLV players, but any of the players that are like now eligible for this. Have they been preparing to play a season? Like for basketball, it's not as big of a deal because the season's a little bit further away, but we hear about off-season conditioning, we hear about summer workouts and all of that. Like it matters to some extent, but like these are the players that this would apply to, generalizing them, but the players this would apply to are guys that don't have a professional career ahead of them. Right? They're not good enough to go play their sport professionally. Because if they were, they'd probably be gone and would be like, all right, I've already moved on from college. I'm starting my professional career. But they're guys who probably don't have a professional career, but are good enough to play college sports. Have they just been hanging around the program working out? Like, are they just lifting weights and running and stuff like that? Like, I don't know. What have they been doing if you're one of these athletes that's now suddenly eligible? Are you even ready to play a college sport at a high level right now? I don't know. I'm sure some guys are like, oh, shit, I'm eligible? Oh crap, I've put on 20 pounds already because I thought I was done playing sports. Maybe I want to go play again. But new rules in college sports. Every week there's new rules in college sports, but these ones would seemingly benefit UNLV. We'll see if they can take advantage of them, if they can even get these guys back onto the roster. More importantly, Dan Mullen hasn't named a starting quarterback for UNLV football. And I find that funny because On3 Sports put out their ranking of the most impactful transfers among group of 6 conferences. So forget about the power conferences, just the little guys. Most impactful transfers. And number 1 on that list was Jackson Arnold, the quarterback of UNLV who hasn't been named the starter yet by Dan Mullen. He can't be the most impactful starter if he gets beat out by Alex Orji. Like, it's just not going to happen, right? Like, if he's not the starting quarterback, I don't think he's that impactful at the end of the day. So, yeah, that's fun that Dan Mullen just hasn't named a starting quarterback yet. And I think one of the big questions for this season is how good is Jackson Arnold? Because the defense should be improved. The schedule is going to be pretty weak. Like, there's reasons to think UNLV will win quite a few football games, even if Jackson Arnold is just kind of okay, even bad possibly, or if it's not him, if he's not the one starting. UNLV's probably going to win a decent amount of football games, regardless of that. But we're talking about the playoffs. Jackson Arnold probably has to be pretty good. And another offseason sort of list or ranking, The Athletic went through and ranked all of the quarterbacks in college football and put them into tiers. Top tier has like Trinidad Chambliss, Arch Manning, Dante Moore, right? Guys like that at the some of the better programs, the best quarterbacks and whatever. But it was actually done not by athletic writers, but it was done by coaches and GMs and scouts across college football. So this is a compilation of all of those opinions. It was 36 of them, all of those opinions put together to rank all the quarterbacks in college football. And Jackson Arnold came in the 5th tier of college football quarterbacks, and they did a nice job of ranking them as well. 64th best quarterback in college football. And the first thing I want to do is sort of compare that to UNLV's level. The rest of the group of 6, there are 2 quarterbacks in his same tier, Maddox Matson at Boise State and Liam Zarka at Air Force. So one in conference, one out of conference. But you also have ahead of him Brad Jackson at Texas State, and then Central Florida, Texas, San Antonio, UTSA, Delaware State, Hawaii's Micah Alejado, Western Michigan, and Florida Atlantic. All of those schools have quarterbacks higher than Jackson Arnold on this ranking. So you're looking at 6 that are above him tier-wise, and then 2 more that are in his same tier. By the way, Anthony Calandria, tier number 4, 39th best quarterback. If he was still at UNLV, he'd be the 2nd best group of 6 quarterback instead of like 8th or 9th or whatever it is that Jackson Arnold came in at there. So Jackson Arnold gives you a good group of 6 quarterback, according to this ranking, but not the best, right? A good one, but not at you're not at the top end here of other group of 6 teams. But one of the interesting ways to look at this and how he stacks up, how UNLV stacks up in quarterback rankings, is if you go through UNLV's schedule and just simply based on this rankings, UNLV will have the better quarterback in 10 of the 12 games they play. The 2 where they will not is Hawaii with Alejado, and then Cal. Cal apparently has one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Can't say that I've watched a lot of Cal football, but apparently Cal's quarterback is awesome. 14th best quarterback on the list. But that's it. Those are the only 2 that are ahead of UNLV. The average quarterback that UNLV will play this season was ranked 91st. That is very, very bad. The last 5 teams UNLV plays, their quarterbacks are ranked 98th or worse, right? It's a top-heavy schedule. You get to the end there, and you get the Northern Illinois, Wyoming, New Mexico, San Jose State, Nevada games. It's very top-heavy, right? Obviously, as a program, New Mexico is expected to be much, much better and the contender with UNLV for the Mountain West title. But even with them in there, NIU, Wyoming, San Jose State, and Nevada around it are all bad, right? Quarterback and across the board. But bad quarterback play throughout the entire schedule and really bad quarterback play at the end. Now, again, quarterbacks don't mean everything. They mean a little bit less in college football than they do in the NFL. Coaching styles and just having a better offensive line and defensive line can make up for not having as good of a quarterback. So it's not as important as sort of we're used to in the NFL. But the good news for UNLV is because the schedule's so bad, they don't have to play very many good quarterbacks. Jackson Arnold should be the better quarterback in most of the games they play, if not 10 of them, right? So it's good news for UNLV. You shouldn't, on a weekly basis, they won't be losing the quarterback matchup, which means, can you win the offense? Can you have a better offensive line? Can you have a better defensive line? Can you have better receivers? Whatever it is, the rest of those positions, you can probably be better than a lot of the opponents you play in your schedule, and you won't get beat because the other team's quarterback is awesome, right? Cal might do that, apparently. I was completely unaware of this, but they might lose to Cal now because they've got the best quarterback in the damn country, apparently. But that's not going to be the case for most of these games. Most of the time, if you're better at the other positions, UNLV should be good enough to win these games because they're not going to get just beaten by an awesome quarterback or have a game where the other team's quarterback is just so much better than Jackson Arnold. But the real question, I think, is how much better does Dan Mullen make Jackson Arnold? And if we do the 2 extremes that I love to do, right? We saw it with Anthony Calandria last year. Was so good that he gets the transfer to Nebraska. He's top 40 quarterback according to this list while going to Nebraska. Obviously, if Dan Mullen does that again and Jackson Arnold has the type of season that Anthony Calandria just had, UNLV's offense is going to be awesome. UNLV's probably winning the Mountain West. UNLV's going to be looking around saying, can somebody beat Boise State so we can go to the playoff? Right? Like, that's going to be the conversation if Jackson Arnold is that good. Now, I do think that is like best case scenario. I think what Calandria did last year is sort of like, oh, that's the best case scenario you can have if you're a quarterback at UNLV under Dan Mullen. It's great. It's an unbelievable season. Like, what Anthony Calandria did last year was incredible. But the other extreme is if we assume Dan Mullen's not just having a quarterback battle for the sake of having a quarterback battle and there's some coach speak motivation going on there. If we assume it's real, the other end is Jackson Arnold's not the best quarterback on the team. And either gets the starting job because of sort of the name power, and it turns out he's actually not that good, which UNLV has experienced all the time. Seemingly every year they start the wrong quarterback. And he's just not good enough, right? And eventually they've got to make the change in season, which would be the worst case scenario because then you've probably lost games and you're probably out of the playoff picture at that point. That's the worst case scenario, is that he's not the best quarterback on the team. They still give him the job. He's bad. They lose because of him. And 4 or 5 games into the season, they've got to change quarterbacks because it's like, oh, wow, our season is already a failure and the quarterback play has been atrocious. That's the worst case scenario. The realistic part, I love to do this, is it's not going to be that bad. It's also not going to be as good as Anthony Colandrea. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. But which one is it closer to? Is it going to be as close to an Anthony Colandrea season? Because if UNLV gets like 75% of what Anthony Colandrea did last year from Jackson Arnold, they're going to win the Mountain West. And it's going to come down to how many losses does Boise State have and whatever. Does strength of record like Boise State or UNLV more? Right? Like that's the playoff picture if he's 75% of Anthony Colandrea. Because if he is, UNLV's going probably at a minimum 10-2 against this schedule and winning the Mountain West Championship game. If he's 25% of Anthony Colandrea, 8-4. A solid season, going to a bowl game, but kind of disappointing. And then what if he's just dead in the middle? Somewhere dead in the middle between he's not the best quarterback on the roster and it's Anthony Colandrea. That'll be the real question as to how good is the rest of this roster? How much better is this defense than it was last season? Because what you're hoping for is you don't need Jackson Arnold to make as many plays late in games to win as they had from Anthony Colandrea last season. You're hoping that you win more games by like 14 points. 1, for your resume and all your metrics, but 2, just so you win the game and it's not, crap, Anthony Colandrea's got to go make 6 plays for us in the final 2 minutes for us to win because we've somehow given up 41 points in this game. But that'll be, if he's just dead in the middle, that'll be like, all right, how much better did UNLV actually get across the board? But quarterback's obviously important. They haven't named starting quarterback, which I always just find funny because, I don't know, I know NFL coaches do it too, but why do college coaches seem to love to play games with that? Maybe I'm just scarred by UNLV doing it over and over because seemingly every single coach has had to do this where they're like, can't name the starting quarterback. They already know who it is, but they're like, I can't do it. Can't name it. Can't tell you publicly. Not going to tell the team either. Got to keep them trying hard in practice. I don't know, but college coaches love to do it. Last thing on UNLV football, ESPN put out a list of the 31 teams that can make the college football playoff. It's early August and we've already eliminated most of college football. Only 31, really low. But there are only 2 group of 6 teams on this list of 31 teams that can make the playoff. This is not win the championship. This is make the college football playoffs. They only put 2 group of 6 teams. It's the 2 you'd think, UNLV and Boise State, which to me seems insane. Because what you're saying is it's only those 2 teams competing for the group of 6 spot. And while, yes, those are the 2 most likely, ESPN has its own analytic ranking, FPI. And FPI, it's less than 50% combining UNLV and Boise State. The field has a better chance to go than just these 2. FPI gives Boise State their projected win total is only 8, and UNLV's is only 9. Now, it's important to note FPI doesn't usually do extremes. It's never going to predict a team to go 12-0 or 0-12, right? It's going to predict everybody closer to the middle than we know they'll actually finish. But the ESPN's own analytical ranking says it would be stupid to say only these 2 teams can make it. San Diego State's got a shot. South Florida has an unbelievably easy schedule, even though they're not as good or projected to be as talented as these other teams. Their schedule's so bad they might be 11-1 on accident, right? Like other teams are going to have a chance. There's probably going to be a Sun Belt team that's 11-1, and it's like, all right, they didn't play anybody, but they're 11-1, so we got to put them in the mix here. Like there's going to be other teams. It just seems bizarre to me because I think UNLV is going to be good and have a real shot at the playoffs here. But like, they open the season here with games they could lose. Like, what happens if they play Memphis, Hawaii, North Texas, and they go 1-2. They're not going to the playoffs, right? Like, they then play Akron, who's terrible. They're going to win that game. But then Cal, right? Like, their first 5 games, if they're 3-2 walking out of their first 5 games, they're probably not a playoff team. I know they could then run the table and 10-2, 11-2 might be enough, but like, if they lose 2 early games, they're done for. Boise State plays Oregon. What if they lose to Oregon by 35 and then lose a Pac-12 game to somebody else, right? Some bad Pac-12 school. Like, it's not that crazy to think that these things are going to happen. It's not insane to think that UNLV comes out, well, let's say they beat Memphis, but then they lose to Hawaii, beat North Texas, beat Akron, lose to Cal. They're 3-2, and so they've still got half their schedule, more than half their schedule to play. And then let's just say they lose to Air Force. They're 9-3, right? And they still might even lose after that. But like, then they're 9-3. They're not going to the playoffs. Their schedule's too bad to go at 9-3. And Boise State could absolutely lose to San Diego State and Oregon, and then they do that weird-ass flex thing at the end of the season, and then they have to play the second-best team again, and then they lose that one, right? Like, it's not, I don't know. It just seems to me too foolish to just say, yeah, there's only 2 Group of 6 teams, which honestly makes me feel like they just were like, I don't want to look up more than 2 Group of 6 teams. Nobody cares about San Diego State. We're not doing any research on San Diego State. Just put UNLV and Boise State up there. That'll be good enough for it. Yeah, so that'll be it. So yeah, and that's it. Top 31. There's 31 teams that go to the playoff, and UNLV is one of them, which is still an insane thing to say. But the important note on that is UNLV should be going to the playoffs. I know I've said this throughout the offseason, but earlier this year, when I was asking on this show, like, what are your expectations for UNLV football? Because they've got a real shot to go to the playoff, but also it's UNLV football. And I know that a lot of people have been around this program and seen them win 2 games, 3 games, 2 games, 3 games on an annual basis, right? And like, it seems insane if you took somebody who watched them, take 5 years to win 10 games to come out and say, well, the expectation this year is to go at least 11-2 and go to the college football playoff. It seems like an insane thing to say to somebody who watched 30 plus years of the team. And that's some of the responses I got, right? Some of you do think like, yeah, it's playoffs. Anything else is a disappointing season. While some of you are like, no, man, like 8 wins is good. Like, just winning the Mountain West would be fantastic. But I think this sets the expectations higher than that. And I don't think it's fair. I do not think it's fair to say it's playoffs or bust for UNLV. If they're 11-2, won the Mountain West, and Boise State goes because they're also 11-2 and had better match, like, we're not going to sit back and say that's a failed season. We're not going to do that. But I do think it's fair to put playoffs and hang it out there as a legitimate expectation for the team. And I guess I'd put it to you this way, similar to my UNLV basketball take. I'd put it to you this way. They need to be in the playoff conversation into the final couple of weekends of the year. Like they should be talked about during the selection show. They won't talk about the Group of 6 very much, but they should be talked about during the selection show. The last 2 or 3 weeks, right? The schedule's pretty bad, so they shouldn't be losing, right? If they lose to Nevada and that kills their playoff chances, we might consider that a failure, even if they are 11-2. But like, they should be in that conversation. We should be at the end of the year, like that New Mexico game. It's the third to last game, assuming New Mexico actually is good again, right? Like, that should be sort of a, hey, if UNLV wins this, it's kind of their, this is our late season. Yep, we're here, right? Like, you go into that game at what would you be at that point? 9-1 or 8-1, I think you'd be at that point. We go into this game at 8-1. If we beat New Mexico, we got 2 crappy teams to finish the season. If we beat New Mexico, we're really putting our mark on a bid for a playoff spot. I think that's the expectation. If they lose to New Mexico and then finish the year 10-2 and even if they lose the Mountain West title game or win it and they just don't get in, that's fine. But like, they should be going into that New Mexico game with a real chance to go to the playoffs. That I think is the expectation. That I think is the realistic expectation, is be in that conversation for the final 3 weeks of the season. And if they do that, like, yeah, losing to Nevada or losing any of those games will be bad and a failure and all that, but it won't be we look back on the season and just declare, yep, that sucked. Everything about that was bad. So yeah, but those are your expectations for the season, because anywhere you look playoff-wise, UNLV is a genuine team to go to the playoffs. Now, last thing on the show, and I actually think it is the last thing this time around, I'm writing at Athlon Sports about the Raiders every day. Go read some of that. I guess I'm asking, if you're listening to the show this long, thank you, and I'll take your opinion more seriously than the bums who stopped listening in the first part of the show. Should I talk about the Raiders on here? I'm writing about them every day. I know way too much about their depth chart right now. And I know way too many things about, like, I don't need to know who's leaving training camp every day. Should I talk about the Raiders on here? Do you want Raiders content on here? Because I can start doing that. If you don't want it, just go read it at Athlon Sports. But if you want me to talk about it, we can start doing that on a more regular basis. This has been Technically Correct. I'm Tyler Bischoff. Thanks for tuning in.